Well, as we continue our mental health awareness coverage here on the AM Report, let's turn our attention to how unemployment impacts people's psychological well-being. With the joblessness rate in South Africa sitting at 33%, that's just the official number, and that's for the second quarter of this year. Research has shown that unemployed people have higher levels of psychological distress and depression. Let's unpack the story now. We're joined by the Operations Director at Sadag, Cassey, that's the SA Depression and Anxiety Group. We're also joined via our video link by the COO at the Youth Employment Service, Leanne Hunter. To both of our guests, a very good morning and welcome to the program. I want to begin with you this morning, Cassey, to talk about the link between mental health and unemployment.
Good morning, and thanks for covering such an important topic. You know, when we're looking at so many of the callers that reach out to us who are struggling to find a job, who've been trying for a number of months, they have high levels of anxiety, worry, stress, depression. And the longer that they're waiting or looking for a job, I mean, people have been unemployed for years. It can lead to more serious illnesses, such as, major depression disorder. We've also got people who feel really suicidal when they're feeling so helpless and so hopeless in providing for themselves or their family or just surviving. So it has a huge impact on people's mental health. And I think even during COVID, we've had so many people that have reached out who lost their jobs during COVID, were retrenched, went on short time, and they haven't had any reprieve. So there's a direct link between unemployment and mental health.
I mean, the statistics are just so incredibly shocking. According to Stats SA, this is for the second quarter of 2022, 2 out of every 3 South Africans between the ages of 15 and 34 are without a job. I'm going to say that again. 2 out of 3 South Africans between 15 and 34 sitting without a job. Leanne, this is a crisis, and we've known that for some time.
Absolutely. The reality is, and to Cassie's point earlier, is that when you have 7.3 million unemployed youth in South Africa and you have a low growth economy, the likelihood that youth remain unemployed for a lifetime is really real. That's what many of our young people in South Africa are facing. And so that's why what we do at the Youth Employment Service is work with the private sector in order to incentivize the private sector to break this unemployment trap that millions of South Africans find themselves in, the trap that I can't get experience without a job and I can't get a job without experience. And this is such a reality for so many of our young South Africans. And so we are working with the private sector. We're private sector led, but we work with a number of ecosystem partners in the youth development ecosystem as well as government to try and find ways to incentivize the private sector to come on board and to sponsor work opportunities for youth, because we just see the immediate effect of that job, not only on a young person, but on their families and their communities. 88% of our youth come from grant recipient households. 90% have dependents. So the ripple effect is just immediate, and the dignity of a job. And the fact that many of these youth are working in really high impact sectors like education, healthcare, conservation, and they're having a seriously meaningful impact in their communities. We've just seen that ripple effect is immediate, and we just need more businesses to come on board and to help us to sponsor more opportunities for young people.
I mean, how successful have you been, Leanne, as I stay with you for just a moment longer? How successful have we been in getting businesses to come on board? As we say, there is that difficult situation that young people often find themselves in. They can't find a job. They don't have the experience for some job applications as well.
You make such a good point. So, I mean, we've really been so excited by the uptake from the private sector. We've had we've only been in operation for just under 4 years. We've had over 2,000 businesses heed the call, join the movement. and they've managed to create 90,000 work opportunities for youth, which equates to 4.9 billion rand back into the economy through youth salaries. So while the economic circumstances that we find ourselves in are really trying, and businesses, it's really tricky for a lot of businesses to add headcount. What we are doing is looking at innovative ways for businesses to be able to create opportunities for youth. So they can sponsor youth jobs in their own businesses, but they can also sponsor youth jobs through our host partner model. So this is a model, and that goes to your point about some of our youth do not have the skills to necessarily go straight into a job that requires a high qualification, but we're trying to build models where youth can enter the job market at any skill level and be able to get that critical first chance.
I want to talk to you about this issue of 90,000 work opportunities as opposed to jobs in a moment. But Cassey, let's bring you back into the discussion. When a young person is looking for a job for such a long period of time, without any success or with little success. I mean, Leanne's just spoken to us about unemployment in young people in South Africa together with a low growth economy, and that often leads to a lifetime of unemployment. In your experience, does this oftentimes lead to young people doing things that might be dangerous to their own lives in an effort to try and make money for their families?
Absolutely. I think it makes people feel really desperate when you're really trying to hustle to look after yourself and family, siblings, children. I think also a really important point, especially when we're dealing with people who have been trying for months, if not years, to look for a job. And it almost becomes their job to look for a job. That can be really frustrating and really exhausting. And then it could lead to feelings of anxiety, depression. We also see an increase in substance abuse, trauma, abuse. And I think also it has this knock-on effect. The whole nature of the illness of having depression or anxiety is that you have a low mood, low energy, lack of motivation. Those are not great contributing factors to help someone who's looking for a job, where you have a low self-esteem and feel like your self-worth and your self-confidence is gone. And I think that's the worry with extended periods of time, and even just talking about a lifetime of being unemployed. I think for a lot of young people at the moment, they feel really hopeless and helpless. And I think giving them some ideas and opportunities is really positive, and it gives them a little bit of glimmer of hope. And when you're feeling so down and you feel like there's no point, and what is my purpose? How can I help my family? I think it's so important to focus on those kinds of things to avoid that never-ending cycle of, not getting a job, turning to desperate measures, feeling really helpless, not contributing to society. And we also know that youth in South Africa are the most at-risk age group for mental health issues, diagnosed depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, substance abuse. So much focus has to be around youth and mental health specifically to really have a strategy going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what does that mean for our country where we have such a large portion of our adult population, 7.3 million, potentially at risk for this kind of anxiety and depression? What does that mean for us? What does our country look like given those kinds of numbers?
I think when we're looking at the mental health stats, just as you mentioned, on the mental health side, we know that 1 in 3 South Africans will or do have a mental health issue. Now, when you add a contributing factor such as unemployment and those kinds of ripple effect that it has not just on the individual but society, we're increasing that quite significantly and putting more people at risk. Yeah. And when we look at our health system and our mental health system, we're not equipped to be taking on so many more people that are needing help. And I think also this is where we've got the element of if we have a strategy in place and we provide resources now, we can actually prevent the long-term impact and the end effect of not providing resources, not having opportunities, and dealing with a long period of time with a big group of unemployed youth. So I think it is really significant and really important when we've also added on the impact of COVID. According to the WHO, during COVID has increased depression and anxiety by more than 30-40%.
Sure.
that's really significant. When we've got all these extra contributing factors, we almost need to be working harder and more to actually counter that. And by having these conversations is really important. You know, when we're looking at the population group that is dealing with unemployment, young people, the burden of care, by having more of these conversations, we can actually empower communities to talk more openly, get help before it escalates to something more severe. And I think that's at least a start when there's so much that still needs to be done in the sector.
Yeah, speaking of a start, Leanne, you were talking about 90,000 work opportunities having been created by companies working with the Youth Employment Service. That's a start, right? Because what we want is jobs, not opportunities.
Yeah.
We want opportunities, but it has to be a start. It has to lead to jobs.
So the best way for a young person to become employable is to gain an employment opportunity. So if you have some kind of employment opportunity, it makes you 7 times more likely to transition into full-time work, into full-time employment.
Right.
So how YES works is that we provide, through the private sector, a 12-month work opportunity for youth, and we know that this makes youth exponentially more employable. Currently, around 46% of our alumni are employed, and obviously we continue to work with multiple players in the ecosystem to try and up that number and create multiple pathways for youth post the program. We're also seeing an enormous amount of entrepreneurial activity, which is really exciting. But the best way to break the unemployment cycle and make a young person employable is to get them a work opportunity so that they have experience on their CV and as well as a reference letter. A reference letter, by the way, if you're a young woman, makes you doubly likely to win the job.
Such an important discussion this morning. Let me thank both of our guests. Cassey Chambers is Sadag's Operations Director and Leanne Hunter, COO at the Youth Employment Service, as we focus on mental health this morning and the impact that it has, particularly on young people. You've been seeing at the bottom of your screen there, we've been running a whole range of helplines. If you do need help, please do reach out to those helplines. Sadag, you can find on 0800 12 13 14, the Youth Employment Service on 087 330 0084. And of course, we'll tweet those numbers for you as well.